What's going on in this book? The gargoyle was the best part of this book. After reading One Dark Window, I was like, Rachel, it's kind of fire. So I was like, wait, she has a new book coming out. Let me go get this. So I read it in the span of 5 days. And I have a lot of thoughts. Not all good, not all bad, but thoughts nonetheless. You may ask, what is The Night and the Moth about? Well, I'm gonna tell you. The story follows sybil, one of the young diviners at Islington Cathedral. Diviners are young girls who are taught how to read the signs in the wind left by the omens, which are the gods in this world. Now, you may ask, how do they do that, Jasmine? By drowning, of course, dunking their head in water and drowning. It's actually a really great time. Like reading it, I was locked in. Sybil's whole life is thrown out of whack when dun 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 her friends, sisters, the other diviners start to go missing. Where are they going, may you ask? Well, you can find that out if you decide to read the book. I'm trying not to spoil you guys. When the new boy king, a heretical knight who's finds on know who and what, and some other people who aren't important arrive, sybil decides to take fate into her own hands and rescue her sister. Through the story, you go on a journey where you figure out the conspiracies surrounding the omen, and sybil confronts her biggest nightmare and her biggest hater, the abbess. Here's the thing with Rachel that I'm starting to notice is that a lot of her stories have potential. And I think that's the word of the day, potential. It has the potential to be good. It has the potential to be deep. It has the potential to be serious. It has the potential to be a great romantic story. And yet, none of it rings true. And that's the thing with Rachel is that all of these stories have so much potential that you see in the first couple of pages, and then slowly you start to notice these trickle of problems that just start to come in. You're like, oh, well, I don't know. Oh, that's not really what I'm looking for. I actually love the religious aspect of this book, and I wanted more. I wanted sybil to like reawaken and understand the trauma that was forced on her at such a young age, and I just don't ever feel like that really happened in this story. The romance was adorable, don't get me wrong. There were some one-liners that were absolutely crazy in this story, but the chemistry, the tension, that delicious, like, oh, I did not feel it, unfortunately. And I'm a big stickler for the tension. Give me tension. Give me chemistry. Give me something to like want. The tension doesn't have to be sexual either. Like, that's not what I'm advocating for. I'm not advocating for like them to be like jumping each other's bones. Like, I want them to challenge each other. I want there to be something. You know what I'm saying? But in this book, I just didn't feel that bite, that crunch. I don't know. Seeing some people call this like one of those insta love stories. They instantly saw each other and it was like, but as I have read some insta love stories, I don't think this is it. But Rachel does have a little quirk that I'm noticing in her stories where you'll know immediately as soon as he steps on the page, yeah, they're gonna fuck. That's what it gives me. It gives me like every single time there's a man and he's like his black hair and his dark green eyes and he looked like he didn't care about the world. And then you see like another male character and it's just like he was short and he was stubby and he looked ugly. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you already know she's gonna jump his bones. They're gonna be together by like act 2 and it's gonna be a fun time, maybe. I didn't really have fun. It just doesn't have enough substance to make the romance work. You know what I'm saying? Like Rory, I feel like is already a really self-actualized character, and you can at least like understand his motivations. You get where he's coming from. I don't know. He just feels like a real character. But sybil, at least Rory, he's interesting. You know what I'm saying? He has this anti-gods thing going on. He has these weird powers going on. Okay, but don't get me wrong. I loved how Rory loved sybil. I think that was one of the highlights. Like some of his like, ooh, like, oh, like it was giving like I would go to the end of the world for you. Like you would? Please do. He was a yearner, a real man. Bring back yearning. I think he needed that. He wanted that and he got that, and I'm proud of him. I think, I don't know, and I appreciate Rory. I appreciate every single time we get a man in romantasy or fantasy that's not a dipshit and a terrible person. I feel like so often they're terrible men and I'm like, just stop being terrible. I don't think you can have that stellar of a romance when sybil is just a nothing burger. And the thing is that she doesn't have to be a nothing burger. She just is. And that's the confusing part to me, is that the foundation is there. She could be a good character, but she's not. She was boring. I'm just gonna say it straight, okay? Don't leave hate comments, but she was boring. And I wasn't able to put it into words why I didn't like care about sybil as much as I cared about even the sisters who did not have that much screen time. I was attached to them. And like, I get the point of your character, but it just didn't hit home to me. It wasn't a home run. And Rory, he was the best character in fiction. He wasn't a Zuko, but he wasn't boring. And I think that's what you need to give me. You don't have to make me cry. You don't even have to just don't make me bored. Make me laugh a little. That's why the gargoyle is the best, because he made me laugh and he was silly and sweet and cute, and I loved him in the nicest way possible. I was obsessed with the other sisters, especially what was her four. Whichever one had the curly hair, I loved her. I wanted her to stay. Okay, I needed her. I didn't need her to banish. I needed her to go on this journey with sybil. I think she needed. Here's the thing. I think she needed one more sister with her. I think if she had one more sister with her, the story kind of would have been more bearable, because sybil on her own is like this goody two shoes, and she's so like, by the rules. And Rory didn't challenge her enough to bring her out of that like rule following behavior. You know what I'm saying? She never really broke out of like her chosen one goody two shoes way in a very satisfying way for me. And it wasn't really meaningful the way she did it until like the end of the story, like the last 20%, when I was looking for that, and I was looking for that build up throughout the whole story. I wanted it so bad. It's not that I didn't want the story to be good. I needed it to be good, and it was, but just not in the way that I wanted it to be. Listen, she was the abbess's favorite. The abbess didn't want her to leave. She was gone. And you could feel that guilt when she left initially for the first time. But I feel like she never truly reconstructed or went through the process with all of the steps of reconstructing, her attachment to this religion, her attachment to being kind of like this Jesus figure, honestly, I would call her, is that the diviners were kind of like these like children of the gods in this story. Yes, she does realize that things aren't what they seem, and that maybe drowning wasn't that cool, but I could have told her that. But she just wasn't fiery. She didn't want it. I just read The Poppy War, and coming off reading The Poppy War and seeing such a fiery, morally dubious, yes, but main character, I just feel like sybil needed that more, especially when your whole life is being taken away from you, and I just felt like that just wasn't her. I liked the side characters, but I never really saw them as actual people in the way that I saw like Rory and Bartholomew as actual people. Didn't care about them to a serious degree. Like when something would happen to them or when they would get hurt, I would just like have like a oh my god, but like that was it, you know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't crazy. The journey, the character development, it all just felt kind of hollow, and I think that kind of summarizes the story. Potential, but hollowness. Listen, there were definitely some gothic vibes going on, but once again, it just felt kind of hollow. Like the word choices were there, the atmosphere was kind of there. It wasn't like One Dark Window, I'll tell you that. But she couldn't pick a geography to stay in, which I guess is fine. But the locations were so diverse. Don't even get me started on the main plot, okay? And this is gonna sound bad because then it's gonna be like, Jasmine, what do you like about the book? Okay, let me cook. The quest was kind of annoying, okay? I liked it in some parts, but it was really just the same thing over and over, okay? Challenge the god, get the artifacts, move on to the next one. Get injured, get killed, get almost skinned alive, and then somehow make it out. You know what I'm saying? It was just the same thing over and over again. So after a certain point, I was just kind of like over it, which towards the end, I feel like it becomes more about, her letting go. Ish. The pacing was just all incredibly off. I just wasn't enjoying the pacing, I'm not gonna lie. At the beginning, the quest, the way that it happened and the way that it started, I was just like, what's going on? Like, I felt like the story was moving way too quickly. I know what we were doing. I know who this guy was. I know what was, like, there was nobody explaining what was going on. I was confused. It was the siege portion of the book, so around 30% in, is when I low-key almost DNF'd the book. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and be like, oh my god, this is the best book I ever had. No, I almost DNF'd it because I was like, this is not, like, it's not good. I was reading it and I was like, okay, she's walking around this city aimlessly. for what? Like, we're not furthering the plot. We're not doing anything, okay? Like, I get it's about her character moment, but she's boring. So what are we doing? I hated the way Rachel described the city. It never felt alive to me, especially if you take into context that there was like 2 or maybe 1 professions in the whole entire city. Like, there's no way that y'all niggas only do 2 things. Like, you're telling me you only got an artist and like a fucking a farmer? Like, what are we doing? That 30% was definitely not good for me. It was definitely not a fun time. I would not read the book again just for that part. I'm not gonna lie. The book lacked in some ways that tarnished the overall experience, you know. It's really just as simple as that. I think that the whole, you know, like the parts, some of the parts were good. There were some good character moments. There were some really good, like, rich descriptions in there. You know, it wasn't all bad. You know, Rachel's not a bad writer. I just think it's that overall, it wasn't the best experience that I felt like it could have been. Sadly, I'm gonna say it. It's your average romantasy, just a little less male centered. It's all kind of hollow in the end, especially if you take into context the plot twist. It kind of made me mad. Rachel, like, really loves plot twists at the end of her stories that really don't clear up anything, don't give you any sort of answers, and just leaves you like, why would you do that? It wasn't as bad as One Dark Window, I'll tell you that, but it was definitely like, what are we gonna do now? Like, that's what that felt like. What are we going to do? But unlike One Dark Window, I didn't feel a pull to read the second book after that cliffhanger. Like, I was just kind of like, okay, and I just kind of moved on. The essential parts of what make fantasy so good just weren't there, like the world building, the escapism, the immersion, the character building. It lacked. It fell flat for me in those aspects of what makes fantasy so desirable and why I seek out fantasy. Would I read the second book? Maybe, like, if I felt compelled to by something. I don't know. Looking at the overall picture, it wasn't that strong of a book. Now, was it a bad book? No. By all means, it wasn't. Just through a critical lens here, I just don't think it delivered on its potential. Over the summer, I gave the book a 4 star, but I was going through like the motions of like gargoyle and, you know, still gargoyle. So I think just for the gargoyle, just for Rory, just for the parts of the book that were pretty cool, like there's a couple of lines that I was like, I would give the book a 3.5. That 30%, I would give that a 1 star. And the beginning was a solid like 5 star beginning. Like, that book could have been something if it had kept the momentum going. But that siege part really destroyed the momentum for me. I can't even lie to you. I think if you're gonna read Rachel's books, so One Dark Window, Two Twisted Crowns, Dead and the Moth, which are very pushed on TikTok, you know, a lot of people are like, oh my god, read this, read this, read this. I think if you read her books, you need to understand what you're getting. There will be some problems, but I think that overall, she's a good writer. You know, I think this is something that she can improve on. And honestly, I think for some people, Rachel can even be a stopping stone. Like, if this is like where you want to be, like you want to be in this type of romantasy fantasy mix, I think this is a good place to be. Like, I see no problems with it. You know, it might not be for everyone, and that's okay. Books aren't for everybody. You know, you're gonna find your book, you're gonna love this book, and don't take my review as me like saying, oh, you can't enjoy this book. Oh, this book, da 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 da. No, just because a book isn't for me, just because a book isn't for this person, just because a book isn't for that person, doesn't mean the book cannot be for you. So make your own opinions, make your own judgments, read the book for yourself. Is it the best literature I've ever read? Is it the most fun I've ever had? Well, for the gargoyle, yeah.